Hello everyone, Zellerant here, and for today's video on Umamusume, we're going to be talking about the upcoming champions, meaning the Virgo Cup, as pre-registrations have started for the Leo Cup, and so most people should have their aces getting finalized at this point and should be planning to build their parents and grandparents. And a quick answer to the people asking the question if it's really worth it to still run in the URA when we have the Unity Cup coming up here soon, and yes, it is 100% worth it. Now, when it comes to building aces, you definitely want to do it in the Unity Cup. But when it comes to parents and grandparents, there's not a dramatic difference. And so you can still make good parents and grandparents in the URA. And you may continue to use the URA to a certain extent on parents and grandparents, because there are some differences that may have some advantages versus disadvantages. One of them being the URA Spark versus the Unity Cup Spark. URAs is being speed and stamina, and Unity Cups being wit and power. But I won't go too much into the details. Just know you're fine making parents and grandparents, continuing to make them at this point for Virgo Cup. And one of the nice things is you're going to have a really good starting point. As you've probably seen with Leo Cup compared to Taurus Cup, you probably started right off the bat using Taurus Cup parents and grandparents to make your new Leo Cup parents and grandparents. For Virgo Cup, it's going to be similar with taking your Cancer Cup parents and grandparents and kind of building off them. Now, for your front runners, I think you're going to notice the biggest difference between them and maybe the end closers. The biggest reason the front runners will see a difference is you have quite a few differences on the greens. So it's Hanshin instead of Tokyo Racecourse. Clockwise, instead of counterclockwise, it's going to be fall instead of summer, and firm instead of wet. Now, that, while it may be a lot different, so if you built really good parents and grandparents for the Cancer Cup with the older greens that you needed, Virgo Cup, you're not going to need them as much in your parents and grandparents because these are much easier to access from hints within your support cards decks, depending on what you're going to be using. There's a lot more opportunity to actually get all your greens. This is going to be very, very easy, or much, I'm not going to say very easy, this is going to be much easier for front runners than Cancer Cup, especially now that we have access to the Summer Ruzensky as well. So we got Summer Ruzensky, we got Smart Falcon still going to dominate, as well as all the others. But before we kind of talk about the greens, because I want to talk about getting access to the greens, kind of how the front runners, the big difference between them, kind of the pace chasers, late surgers, and end closers. First, let's look at the actual difference between the two tracks. They're both 1600, and so the biggest thing I think that'll be the most noticeable for people is going to be the very end. As you know, in the Cancer Cup, we had angling that would activate right here as the late race starts, alongside Major Orion's Let's Pump Some Iron, the two strongest accelerations. And then you had the straightaway, so all the straightaway skills, so like El Condor Pasas for your first and second place, or basically you put it on your front runner, or a really strong like El Condor Pasa Pace Chaser. As well an Encroaching Shadow and Straightaway Spurt. This is going to be a little bit weaker on the straight going into Virgo Cup because, as you can see, it's a little bit farther away. The corner lasts a little bit longer. So just know Straightaway Spurt and all the straight related skills are going to be a little bit weaker. So this actually makes the late surgers a little bit stronger because all their gambling skills don't rely, like most of them, don't rely on the straightaway in that aspect. They just rely on gambling on the late race. Angling still activates at the same place. So does Major Orion's. So those skills are going to get stronger while your straightaway ones, Encroaching Shadow, Straightaway Spurt, and all that will be a little bit weaker. But not to the point that they're completely useless. Now, I will say right off the bat for your end closers, you have a huge advantage on something especially if you're building like a gold ship, or someone like that's not Narita Taishin that doesn't have Straightaway Spurt built in. We now have the ability to borrow that Sweep Tosho Speed card, which has Straightaway Spurt built into its event chain. It's the very first event you can get it. Now, it is a 50-50 shot, or whatever the percentage chance between getting it and not getting it. But it's a way to get it very easily, so you don't have to worry about grinding out parents and grandparents having Straightaway Spurt in their lineage. You can just borrow that as your speed card. I would even take that over Akita-san Black if you're needing that, just to make sure I have that easy time getting Straightaway Spurt, and I can just focus on stats from that point forward. So that's kind of the biggest difference. I mean, you have a little bit of difference on the uphills and downhills, and that going into the Unity Cup, it's going to be much higher on the stats, especially your front runners. You're going to have a lot easier time. We're going kind of into that wit meta, so you should be having not only really high power, but really high wit alongside max speed. And so just know it's going to be much, much more competitive on the frontrunner side, because Unity Cup's going to make it a little bit easier to get that, plus a bunch of skills. But with that, that's kind of talking about the others. Late surgers, still good at gambling. Not much difference, really, ultimately, for late surgers. End closers have to deal with a little bit shorter of a straightaway to take advantage of, but they are still going to be decently strong. And then pace chasers are going to probably be the weakest, and like they were in Cancer Cup, but even weaker now, because El Condor Pasa, which was really strong, has a longer distance before she can activate hers as well. Now, there might be slight advantage to a certain extent, because El Condor Pasa, if you do run her as a pace chaser, she has to pass all the front runners that are dying off. So that could work to her advantage to a certain extent. Or not really advantage, but it might not be that big of a deal, because she's still going to have time to activate it. So we'll just kind of have to see, test it out as it comes out. But now let's go look at what the biggest difference is going to be as your greens for especially your front runners, but also your other, because getting the speed greens are still going to be very, very useful for your late surgers, pace chasers, and enclosers, as well as like firm conditions to get extra power, because power is going to be a big thing in this. And they're going to be much, much easier to get. And when we kind of look at the support cards that have it, the first one we'll take a look at is like firm conditions. Power's key in Mile. In Mile and Sprint, having as high of power as you can is very key. So firm conditions can be very, very useful. Now, we're not going to be using Super Creek or any of the stamina cards. You definitely want to avoid those on Mile, but just in Unity Cup in general, because of the Rico card. But we have access to actually a very, very strong power card. The Nishino Flower. Now, if you for some reason have high dupes of the Nishino Flower speed, she's basically the same thing, but on the speed side of things. Nishino Flower power, as one nice thing, she has 15% race bonus, so you're going to get easier time getting more stats from races. But she has 3 of the greens. She has standard distance, Hanshin race course, and firm conditions. Frontrunners, this is very, very big, because she only has 5 hints, and 3 of them are greens for you. Very easy access to getting them. You're going to want high power. So to me, she's going to pretty much be a mandatory for me on my front runners just to get those. So very nice right there. But then you also have the wit meta that's kind of coming out. And what will probably be one of the more popular cards, especially if you have Kita-san Black MLB, and of course you should have your Rico card, is wit cards. And Fine Motion, I gotta go to support cards here. Fine Motion is actually going to be very good in this one. She was very good in the last one, but she was just a very good wit stat stick. Now she's a very good wit stat stick that has right-handed and fall runner for you, so 2 of your greens. And she's a top tier stat stick. Since if you have MLB, Kita-san Black, or 3 Limit Break, and you've been borrowing Super Creek, to me, Fine Motion's going to be your borrow going into the Virgo Cup. You borrow an MLB Fine Motion, and use her for a very strong wit stat stick. She has very good training effectiveness. And then 2 of your greens, both of the speed ones, which everybody wants that. Everybody wants the speed ones, which is very, very good. But Fine Motion's not the only good one here now. We also have, and this is one that I will be bringing pretty much every single Champions meeting for the Unity Cup, and that's going to be the Machikana Fukukataru card. Now, I'm going to say this one, to me, is a higher priority than Fine Motion, because she is one of the Link Max characters, just like Rice Shower is, Rico, Tyke Shuttle, and Urara. And so she's very good. Wit cards in general are starting to become very, very good, especially on the shorter distances. So a must-have. And the nice thing is, now her hints kind of suck here. I will say that. But she is a very good stat stick to pair alongside like a Fine Motion. But she has right-handed built into her training events, and it's a chained event. So unlike left-handed on the Silent Suzuka card, which it seemed like to trigger at like 33% of my runs that I did, this one triggers like 90% of my runs. So very easy access to right-handed, very good for your front runners, because it's basically 1 green down of 3 that you want to get. And it's been I've been using this card even when I was building for Leo Cup. And so we'll be even stronger in the Unity Cup because of that link match. So you have that one. And so have a lot easier time. The Cancer Cup I know is a brutal for a lot of people. Now, when you were building Seiyun Sky, or if you were building like Silent Suzuka, it was a little bit easier because they came with a green already by default. Smart Falcon already came with some. Smart Falcon a little bit weaker on that aspect because she does not, I think she has wet conditions, if I'm not mistaken, built into her. So she's not going to be able to take advantage of that one. But she has Frontrunner Stabby still, so she still has one of her greens. So really, really good still. Still going to be probably one of the top ones. Her and Summer Ruzinski are going to dominate this one. Her possibly being the stronger of the two. It depends. It's ultimately going to come down to who has the stronger build overall, who's going to win most of the time. But having that ability that if you touch first place and pushing yourself ahead versus Summer Ruzinski, where her alt is to catch up and pass towards the end, I think Smart Falcon is going to be stronger in that aspect, but much harder to build. But we have those as our greens. You have Sunny Conditions, which is, I mean, it's all over the place. We don't really need to talk about that one. And it's probably the worst of them. I'd rather try and get, like, the main three I'd want to get on my front runner if I can is Firm Conditions, Right-Handed, and, man, I'm forgetting the other one. Right-Handed and Fall Runner. Yeah, get those three. Depending on your sparks, maybe Standard Distance and Hanshin Racecourse could be good to kind of go over. But I feel like, especially if you're using the Rico card, you're going to way overcap on stamina regardless to a certain extent, because if you're hitting power, you're adding stamina. The Rico card will give you a ton of stamina. So those would be the priorities, but you have access, easy access to the other greens because your front runners, you need them regardless. So you have Standard Distance, which is probably one of the easier ones that you can find all over the place. I mean, of course, it's already on the Nishino Flower. It's an Aishin Flash. And then, like, Firm Conditions is all over the place. King Halo. You have it on King Halo. You have it on the Nishino Flower. You don't really care about Guts. Guts really hasn't coming into play at this point yet. But as you can see, everything's pretty much easy to access. So I feel like Virgo Cup is going to be a lot easier for those who want to run front runners. Definitely a lot easier than Leo Cup for you, because now you don't have to worry about stamina, so it's going to be a lot easier to get your power and wit up alongside max speed. Now, I will say that because Unity Cup's going to make it much easier, just in general, building your front runners, you're going to be coming up against a lot stronger ones. And I know in Cancer Cup, a lot of the front runners were fairly weak that I ran into. I feel like there's going to be a step up here just because it's going to be a little bit easier for people to get access to them, but we'll kind of have to see. I could be wrong there, but I feel like people are in general just going to have stronger front runners going into the Virgo Cup. Like, I've been kind of seeing what was possible on other ones, and I think what I've seen is some people that would have like a 1200 speed, 1000 power, 1000 wit. It won't be a problem at all because you might take 3 wit cards, 2 stamina, or not 2 stamina, 2 speed and 1 power, or depending, like, you may not even want to bring the Rico card. I know a lot of people say the Rico card is super good to help with that. But depending on your cards, you could probably get away without Rico because you're going to bring Machihana Fukukataru. You can bring Rice Shower. Even though you don't need Swinging Maestro, she is a power card. And so you got that link match. And then you bring, like, Nishino Flower power alongside her. You bring Fine Motion with Machikana Fukukataru. And then you bring your MLB Key to Sun Black if you have that, alongside maybe like King Halo or something else to bring up your speed to max. And yeah, you can have some very strong Umas here without having to worry too much about your stamina and guts. So that was just kind of a quick overview of it. I'll be making more dedicated videos on it once we get past and done with the Leo Cup. And then I'll also be making dedicated videos specifically on the Unity Cup once it comes out, since I don't play on the Japanese server, so I can't actually showcase it in game. But I might talk about it on my next video, kind of the Unity Cup and planning around it, especially if you're planning to build a quick finals Uma using the Unity Cup, because you will be able to make a much stronger ace to finish off the Leo Cup strong if you build a new one in the Unity Cup, which will have like a day and a half to do. But yeah, that'll be it for now. I thought I'd just do that real quick. But if you like my content, if you can like, comment, subscribe, it really helps. And thanks for watching.